the $1 Million Mortgage Experience podcast. Welcome to this episode. We're here with my buddy Andy Dane Carter. He's a real estate expert, investment strategist, author, and a keynote speaker. Welcome to the show, bud.
Thank you, brother. I'm stoked to be here, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think you inspired me to do a podcast, so I'm just like very excited to have you back. I think we've done a couple, so in our roster, you can go back and see those. But you've done a bunch. I did one with you.
Yep. You've come a long. What a beautiful studio. Come a long way since the first one we did. I think in like your boardroom at your old office,
and it was like a mortgage minute. So it was like real short. It was like, how do you find clients, right?
That's right.
Something
That's
like
right.
that.
Yeah.
But then we went to long form podcasts, and I know you were doing a bunch, and then you did stuff with Gary Vaynerchuk, and like I was like, dude, this guy's on fire. I gotta have him on. And
it's fun, man. I really like podcasts. I just like the medium, and it's great. It's also really cool if you have kids because it lives on for like generations. So I just love that piece of it.
Yeah, that is cool. Hi, kids.
Yeah, what's up, guys?
So let's get caught up on you. I know you're in Long Beach, but you have offices in 3 different locations, right?
We do, yeah. So we've got a really cool office in Naples and Long Beach. Okay. We have an office in Newport Beach, and then we have an office in LA. And it's an interesting kind of switch and pivot that I made. Okay. I was like huge in like flipping and building and multifamily investing and syndications and all of that stuff. And I got really bored about 4 years ago, and I was frustrated. I had some huge deals. That was like
deals. 2020. Like, was that during the pandemic?
Yeah. So it was funny. It was the summer before the pandemic.
Okay.
I was speaking at this conference with Tom Ferry.
Cool.
And I was talking about, so many real estate professionals love to waste their commissions on like sushi and vacations and lease payments. And I'm like, stop spending your commission dollars on dumb shit. Like buy real estate, buy 2, 3, and 4 unit properties. They're really easy to get in and out of and refinance them. So I was doing this whole talk on that, which is a humongous passion of mine.
That's cool.
And then I'm sitting there backstage, and I'm sitting there with like all these top real estate agents, from like San Diego and New York and LA. And I'm just like shooting the shit with them. Yeah. And like, oh yeah, we did 6 million last year in commission, 12 million, 20 million. I'm like, your little 6-person team is netting 6 million in revenue.
Wow. Yeah.
And I was like, so I started to do some math, and I'm like, and some of them aren't that bright. So I was like, listen, this is a perfect time for me to make like a small little pivot. And I literally pulled Tom aside backstage, and I go, I'm going to start a traditional real estate team. And he's like, residential? And I go, yeah. And he goes, why? And I go, honestly, Tom, I'm bored. I want to see if I can do it. I'm kind of looking for a challenge.
Yep.
So I set out to just do it. I didn't really know much about it. And we launched a brokerage and launched a team, and so far, so good. I gave myself 7 years to be the #1 team in the city of Long Beach, and we did it in 4.
Nice.
And I'm having fun. It's a blast.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool.
So we were talking earlier that everyone was, these last couple of years were tough for real estate. I mean, there's not a lot of listings.
100%.
I think we're at like historical low listings, correct?
Absolutely.
In California and, in the United States. But like, talk to us about what you did differently during this crazy, I call it the interest rate apocalypse.
And you are spot on. So it was, you couldn't pick up your phone without the interest rates. It was, everybody was talking about it. And for me, if that's ever the case with anything in business, that's where the opportunity like mecca lies. If there's fear in the market, you just triple down. And sometimes I don't even know how we're going to do it. I just know that usually works. So 21 was insane, as I'm sure you know. It was like a free for all.
Oh, I'll never forget that year.
Yeah, it was a great year. If there were so many people that aren't very good at real estate that had their greatest years ever. 22 started to kind of shift a little bit, but 23 was a fear-filled market kind of from the jump.
Yeah.
So the first quarter, everybody's like, what's going to go on? And by Q2, it was,
yeah.
Right. So everybody kind of froze.
Some mortgage businesses were going out.
Absolutely. And there was a lot of people like leaving the real estate business or just trying to figure it out. Yeah. So we tripled down. And what I've done for the past 3 years straight is I'm trying to grow a brand and a business. So I was dumping tons of like branding and marketing dollars back into the business and the brokerage and the team.
Nice.
Because everybody knew me as like a real estate investor.
Yeah.
They didn't know me as a like, oh, you can sell our house on the water.
Right.
So I had to change that perspective. So I was already spending, but we invested like 60% of all of our revenue back into the business year one,
Wow.
65 year two, and 74 in 23.
Wow.
So I'm just dumping all of this revenue that we're making back into the business and marketing like crazy. Well, we exploded because we were so visible. Everybody tightened up all their marketing budgets,
Yeah,
and we went full gas.
Wow.
And we had the #1 team in the city.
So cool, man.
Yeah,
Congrats.
it was awesome.
So I remember for some reason this popped in my head, but the Bobs. There's a group of guys, you call them the Bobs.
I still have them.
They all have hair like me and beards like me.
They're
probably
much older than you.
Maybe less hair than I do. But,
yeah.
But they are the wisdom of the, you look to the forefathers or the people who kind of came before us and like what they did in these, because cycles are cycles for a reason. They up and down. And, I've been in the mortgage business 27 years or so, and I've seen the ups and downs, and that's what teaches you to like save that dry powder. So when the times are tough, you don't have to cut your marketing budget, right? Like, so talk about the Bobs and like, were they involved in this decision making at all, or?
1000%. Like I always get like goosebumps even talking about them. They are my trusted mentors. And there's this one lady too. So she's like the Bobette is what I call her.
The Bobette.
Yeah, but it's for me, it's who I go to when I'm scared.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I'm not sure what the next move is. I've gotten a lot better, but I will never pretend like I know everything.
Right.
And when you've seen 9 cycles and you're in your late 70s and 80s, I'll sit with them. I'll bring my list of questions and all this stuff. They'll laugh because they remember when they were like,
You're like,
my age.
8% interest rate's high? Try 18%.
Yeah. And
they'll laugh at you, right?
And it's exactly what they did. And they walked me through how to make money if the interest rates are at 20% or 2%.
Yeah.
And so I just got the confidence in, like, my goal in life is to be a Bob and be advising somebody, back in the day.
Right.
And that's what I've always done. But they're so wise, and they're like, real estate is a game of walking. And when you walk, you win. When you run, you can get yourself in trouble.
Yeah.
But it's just part of the journey. And that's when you build your armor. That's when you build like your toughness as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as a leader. When all your agents are freaking out and they're not making their mortgage and they don't know what to do, if you're not dead set on exactly what the goals are and the vision for the company, there's fear across the board within your organization. And that's a problem.
Yeah, you got to be that leader that shares like, you're going to be okay. We're going to survive. This is why. Here's the plan. Lay out the strategy. Lay out the plan. So what did you do? I mean, you doubled down on marketing or tripled or whatever it was. But what did you do? Did you like boots on the ground? Did you go out and hand out flyers? Like what marketing did you use?
Yeah, so we got very strategic on, there's still people that will be transacting. Yeah. People are still getting divorced. People are still leaving the state of California.
Bankruptcies.
People are still losing their jobs, losing their companies, or they're selling them, having like massive liquidity events. And how do we support everybody? So we got very strategic on those QR codes because they got very popular because of COVID and everything else.
Yeah.
So we went nuts with those. And I turned into like a data nerd on who's scanning them and why. So we created an entire thing. So we're really big in digital marketing, right? Obviously, tons of social, tons of everything. Well, we're just as big in print. So coupling print marketing and digital marketing in the investing space and like just every space with luxury real estate, traditional real estate, really worked, because what it does is the digital helps us with branding and we're very visible to the public. But when I'm putting something in your mailbox with a specific QR code and then you hit it, and then one of our agents shows up with like a beautiful CMA and packet and magazine and like, Post-it note, all like the realtor stuff on your door the next day, the phone starts ringing. And then they see us on Facebook and Instagram. And this guy's like, who is this guy that's everywhere? They're in like, they're also very efficient. So we coupled that and we were getting thousands of leads. So then it became, okay, how do we follow up with everybody?
Wow. And
And that's the boots on the ground, knocking on the door. Hey, I'm not sure if you got our CMA. I'm sure you have no desire to sell. We'd love to set up a meeting with our team leader, Andy.
Yeah.
And it's all the old school tactics that work with all the new digital stuff.
And it just comes down to you're putting a ton of effort into it, right? I mean, that's nothing good comes easy. And I think there's the mindset of like, I could probably find a shortcut and then I can take the elevator to success, or I can hop on this little hack and then it's like all of a sudden, I don't have to do all that hard shit.
The hard stuff never ends. Ever, ever, ever. And that's what the Bobs have always instilled in me. It's like, if you're at the tip of the spear, you're at the tip of the spear. That's it. Yep. You're going to always have to work hard. And there's only a couple hacks in this game, and it usually comes from mentorship.
There's usually the ones that are doing all the effort also have the hacks.
Of course.
Right? Of course. So there's no shortcut to success.
There's none. And it's the thing that's literally driven me since I was a kid, because I was raised super poor, which I've shared with you.
Yeah.
But I pretend like I make 10 grand a month. Like I've got this weird thing in my brain where I can be driving and be like, I'm gonna be broke in a week, and I will like convince myself of it. Yeah. I never have to work again for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Nor do my kids' kids. But I pretend that I'm failing. I'm in this constant struggle of like, I'm not doing enough. I suck. I should be doing way more. And how we found out that we were the number one team in the city is I was so frustrated on this one weekend. I'm like, I can't believe I'm letting everybody down, let my family down. We're having a terrible year. I went and pulled everybody's production. And I was like, oh, we're crushing everybody. Nice. I go, it's not just me.
Yeah.
It's everybody.
Well, you've been through at least 1 or 2 cycles. So
I've been through 2.
You know what it feels like to come back to the wife and say, we're not going to go out to dinner for a while. Like we're going to have to eat some, ramen or whatever it was. Like, we got to cut this bill. We got to do all this. So that will always stay in your mind. Kind of like how like grandparents, they'll save toilet paper, or they'll use they'll break it down, or they'll save the tin foil because they remember like how hard shit got. And if you don't have that, like that's why, the kids that make a bunch of money, they spend it all and then they're broke and then they have to start over again. But like when you've been through stuff and you don't have the Bobs, if you haven't been through stuff and you don't have the Bobs, then you're gonna probably crash and burn. But I like that idea of you just saying, look, that's what I do. I keep my checking accounts pretty low, and I have all my money invested, but it makes me kind of have a little anxiety about, oh shit, I got to step on the gas a little harder. I got to do that extra thing, because it's so true that when you have been given money or you have a big bank account, if you saw $1 million sitting in your checking, you'd be like, I don't have to go to work today. Maybe I'll
it's the worst.
Plan that other vacation, or right.
It happens so fast. I tell everybody, my fear is the opposite now with this crazy inflation and everything else.
Yeah.
I'm afraid to have too much cash in the bank because I'm watching it erode.
Oh, it is.
And it's just, I would rather have it invested, put it in stuff, put it everywhere. I like having my money in real estate. I just, it's easy for me to pull. I keep it simple, and I get hit up and proposed to invest in every company you could possibly imagine. And I'm just like, I do a little bit of angel investing here and there.
Nice.
But 97% of my entire net worth is in real estate.
Yeah, I know. It's funny. It's funny. Like I just started getting in after 2021. I started getting into a little angel investing. You get pitched a ton. When you do well, you get pitched all these little, it's the deodorant of this, or it's the,
it's the Uber of this. I know.
Right. And you're like, okay, let's look at it. And then, it's fun. It's kind of fun to take a gamble a little bit. But real estate are these your dollars become these little soldiers, right? And they're just like going to war and working for you. And I do love, like, I have a large portion of my stuff into real estate as well. Way heavier because it's what I know, right?
Me too.
I don't have a lot like sitting in stocks because I do terrible. Every time I pick a stock, it's like, it goes up a little bit, then because I didn't look at it and didn't time it right.
I'm the worst stock investor.
Yeah.
And I've got some great buddies that crush, but that's all they do. So they're really into it. I stick to what I know. I stay in my lane, and so far so good.
What are some other secrets to your success? Because you said you grew up poor. Do you think that drove you to be successful, or what was like some of the main things?
1,000%. Yeah. I mean, I still have such a huge chip on my shoulder. Like I love to shove it in people's faces. People that doubt me, it's kind of the wrong motivation to have, especially as I slowly get older.
Yeah.
But God, for 20 years, 30 years almost, I use it as such a driving factor.
Nice.
But it's that thing where I was a super bad student. I got really bad grades. I was a good athlete. I've always been good at pushing. Like I'm very comfortable starting something and I have no idea what I'm doing. And
let's call that the charge. You charge.
Yeah, it's a superpower of mine where I started this like traditional real estate team and I'm like, what what's a CRM? Like, how does all this stuff work? So, and I just knew, I just like to give myself enough runway to win and figure it out. And then I just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And I stumbled and continue to stumble today, but I'm totally fine falling on my face. So I don't care if I lose. That's the thing. So I don't know.
You're not going to lose long-term, right? It's like you got to get comfortable with failure, because failures, if you look at it like, oh, I'm a failure, then you're doing it wrong. But if you look at it like, oh man, I failed this time, but that's one step closer to that win, right? Like that's what you have to do.
100%. I love Ray Dalio. I think he's a genius. I think he's a brilliant, brilliant man. I was watching a podcast he was doing, probably like 2 days ago, and he created his principles from his failures. And he's just like, I would make these mistakes and I would write them down. And then the next time that scenario came up, even if it's 10 years later, I knew how to basically navigate that space.
Yeah.
So then I had these list of principles, and you blink and now I'm in my 70s. And I'd failed so much, I became successful. So it's kind of the same across the board. Like, you're going to lose. There's going to be up and down markets. The problem with real estate, and your space as well, is when the market's really good, like the C players think they're stars. They think that I'm so good.
I'm rich.
And it can be like a double-edged sword.
Yeah. Yeah, and that, because you don't have to put the effort in. You don't have to work as hard. So it just comes easy. Then it makes you spoiled, and you get lazy, where the guys that are like, they have that hunger, that real drive, they'll win in any market, because Anytime. It's like, you're going to put the effort in, you're going to do the work. Like, I don't know. It's just something that I feel like failure is so important. That's probably the hack, failure, because
1,000%.
If you're not afraid to fail, then you're going to eventually win, or you're going to eventually succeed. I mean, even if it goes back to skateboarding, I think you were a skater, right? Every time you try to do that kick flip and you land and you hurt yourself, or you don't land it, every single time you're that much closer to landing it. And then once you land it, you kind of like start landing it more and more and more and more and more. But like, I look at business as like a skateboard trick
100%.
In a way, because you're going to land it eventually, unless you kill yourself. But you learn that like you can't have fear, right? To like try these tricks, like whether it's a handrail you're grinding down, or it's you're going off a ramp doing a 360. Am I gonna land and hit my head, or what? Right? Like, so I think I learned some of my failures, like how to keep going to win, and to eventually not to take that failure into a win from skateboarding.
It's an incredible sport, but it's so mental. Yeah. And when you crash over and over and over again, and the skaters that just keep getting up, they're the ones that, when the only way to lose is if you quit.
Yeah.
That's it. But if you're skating, and I love to get like, they're so frustrated, they're bloody, and they keep going back up the stairs and then back down again, and then they hit it, and they're like there's this relief that comes over them, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like off to the next one.
Yeah.
That's entrepreneurship.
That is.
In a nutshell.
So true. Yeah. I love it. So you market to wealthy clients, right?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
What's some of your tricks that you do with that? Like, or what's something that works?
So we've gotten really big in like community outreach and sponsoring like luxury events. So I got really big in like the Long Beach Yacht Club. It's a bunch of old money. And I've been a member there, for 12 years. I almost never go. Yeah. But what I found is these folks that have a lot of money at a certain age, they only care about like philanthropy and giving back to the community.
Sure. And making life meaningful in a way.
Right. Because they've done all kinds of shady stuff to get their money. Now they're trying to give back. And we just got super successful with that. And I reached out to like a few people, and then it turned into, some like things with golf and golf tournaments.
Yeah.
And what I found is a lot of these people have a lot of money. Mm-hmm. They have certain charities and certain events. So I took my social media background and was like, hey, why don't you guys have an Instagram page, or why don't you have a YouTube channel, or how come you haven't thought about doing a podcast for their charity? So that was my angle to get in front of some of these people. And then they're like, hey, you know what? We see your stuff all over town.
Yeah.
How do you know so much about marketing and branding? And I'm like, well, let me tell you a story, and then I start to build that like relationship. So we went after these high net worth people, in Newport Beach, as how do we help your nonprofit? And then it's turned into like, oh yeah, you could sell my $20 million house. And we really like you and trust you. Yeah. So it's interesting. You have to go where they're at. Like the secret to luxury anything, where are they?
Yeah.
And then you got to get there.
The eyeballs. Where are their eyeballs? Where are they sitting? Where are they eating? Where are they spending their time? What are they watching? Mm-hmm. You got to go where it's like, I mean, it's a stupid analogy, but it's not, because it's the only one I really remember. I was on a trip with my wife and some friends, and the boys all got up early. We were in the Caribbean. We all got up early to go fishing. Mm-hmm. And we're going out on this awesome fishing boat, and we're with these two captains, and this is like my first time deep sea fishing, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not a huge boat. It's just a small group. There's three guys and two captains. And I was just like really curious on how they're going to find these fish. Because we're like, we want some freaking big like tuna, right? Or like yellowtail or whatever. And so they're hunting for them. They're looking. And then they start looking up at the birds, right? They're looking where the birds are. And they see like a big group of birds over there. So they're hauling ass over there. And then they pull up, and then you know, we have the trolling, right? It's what you
trolling,
call it.
Huh?
And so all of a sudden, zzz, like catch them, right? And I was just like, that is fascinating. Is that there's always signs to tell you where, if you got to know, like if you're looking for big things, like big clients, big wealthy clients.
That's right.
They're in a place, and there's signs that tell you where they are. You just have to know what those are and how to find them. So how do you? That's some good ideas. Like what's working in like print marketing or in other ways to catch those big clients? Right.
So you have to speak to what they care about. That's also very important. Like they don't care, just listed, just sold, you know, that's great. A great point. Yeah. Great. You know, it's like, so we got very strategic with the wording for our letters to certain clients. And I'll share all of them with you. I give all of our stuff away for free. I don't really care. But it's what are you doing with your home right now? What are you doing with your investment property? Have you already fully depreciated everything? Did you do cost seg across the board for your whole portfolio? What are you doing now?
Because they do care about those tax write-offs.
They care about
That's what they really care about.
Right. So what we do is we get very specific in how we can assist you to save money. It's not about like selling their house. I've sold more people's homes by trying to go after their portfolio and then build that relationship through those phone calls. And then, hey, Andy, you sell luxury real estate too, right? Absolutely, I do. Yeah. So it's kind of a way into the back door.
Yeah, the chink in the armor, maybe.
That's right. Yeah. And what I did way back in the day when I was flipping houses and working with all these investors, I would bring them all these deals. And there was a couple big whales, and I'm like, I'm going to give them the lion's share of this. I'm going to bring them all my great deals to them because I want to get invited to the golf tournament. I want to get invited to the Christmas party. Right. So I want to get in the room. So how do I get in the room? I over provide them value. And if you just hand them deals where they're going to make money, they're your best friend.
Yeah.
They're very simple. That's right.
Yeah.
And then it becomes this like, hey, you should meet me for lunch and meet my business partner. And then like, hey, why don't you meet me at the club? Let's go play golf. And you show up there and there's like 6 guys with $100 million net worth.
Yeah.
But that's the work no one wants to do. Yeah. And it's also, no one gives himself enough time to pull that off.
True.
Most people in the space of real estate and mortgage.
Transactional.
They have a transactional mindset.
Yep.
I'm forever. I want to do business with your grandkids.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I keep it very simple.
It's good, man. I love that. Good tips. Tips for brokers to become a preferred lender. Like what would like I'm sure you talk to mortgage brokers. So they see your stuff everywhere, right?
They do.
So there's like the shortcut they think is, I'm just going to call Andy and get business from him.
Right. Doesn't
work that way.
No.
That's transactional.
It's a long process.
Yeah.
Especially with me. I've had like the same lenders forever. I've had the same title guy forever. I used to play like Little League with him, and now he's the president, at Tycor. So, and he's bailed me out of a million spots.
Nice.
So everybody that just kind of like cold calls my office, and I'm like,
I'm good on title.
I'm like, it's going to be hard for you to pull Mark's business for me.
Yeah.
But it's relationships. Like this one title rep, for example, kept coming by, and I'm just like I'm not going to give you any business. I think you're a great guy.
Yeah. And
then sure as shit, he found a product that really worked for what we were trying to do with marketing.
Nice.
And he's like, I'll set everything up for free, blah, blah, blah. And he was relentless at trying to get just one deal with me. And he presented, I was like, this is going to work. And I'm like, all right, you're in. And I started to kind of give him a couple here and there.
Yeah.
And it's the same with like, it's like the same with your lender,
Yeah.
I've tried out so many other lenders and they'll miss almost every time.
Wow.
And when you miss the first time, it's like, God.
Yeah. First impressions matter.
It's really important.
Yeah.
Especially with high net worth clients.
Let's talk about this big elephant in the room, which is the buyer's commission. The buyer's commission thing was just, I mean, I've seen articles about it. I don't know enough about it to just enough to be dangerous to think, oh shit, something's brewing, right?
Right.
But these lawsuits, these, the commissions, I'm a big believer in government, stay out of it. There's
100%.
There's gonna be the Redfins that charge 1%. There's gonna be people that come in that say like, you can do for sale by owner and just give me $500. Like the market will always make room for different things. When you get government, involved too much, they're gonna screw it up. They're gonna create
always,
and it's just gonna be only good for bigger companies, and then that's not good for the smaller guys. But let's talk about what your thoughts are on this. I mean, is it a bad thing? Is it a good thing? Are you seeing the optimistic side of it, or?
I'm always optimistic.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be amazing. It's going to do one, it's going to squeeze out everybody who was on the fence. Do I stay in the business? I'm getting older. I'm tired of this. I can't do one more change. Right. I still use a notepad. It's going to squeeze them out. It's also going to squeeze out the people that did really well 21, 22, almost went out of business last year and are now barely hanging on. They're going back to Starbucks, B of A. For them, it's a wrap.
Yep.
I think that's good for the industry. I think there's too many people. I've always said the barrier for entry for real estate should be, you should have to take some kind of course, for 25, 30,000. I mean, you're dealing with a tremendous amount of money with a lot of people, and you pass a $400 test and you can go list a $30 million house.
Yeah.
It makes no sense to me. But as far as this whole thing, with it's always been negotiated.
Yep.
Always has been, always will. The consumer doesn't understand how it works.
Yeah.
And the media is making about 1,000 times worse. The buyer, in my humble opinion, they've always paid all the commission anyways.
Yeah.
Right?
They say it's the seller.
It's not.
But the sales price goes up to cover that.
1,000%.
So the buyer's paying it.
And the buyer's bringing either their cash to cover that number that the listing agent and the seller came up with.
Right.
Or they're getting a loan and those proceeds from the seller.
Yeah.
So I come from a very different field of there's no more buyer commission. I'm the buyers have always paid the commission. They just didn't have their head around how or why.
Interesting.
What I don't like is the attorneys that are involved.
Yeah.
That are the bloodsuckers of this whole thing. They're taking the lion's share of the money anyways. Yeah. That's fine. That's what they do. But they're standing on a principle that, you were forced a commission. You were forced this, right?
Yeah.
Had to be in contract. So
they didn't earn it.
They didn't earn it. And you were steering the market, right? Like NAR.
Yeah.
Well, those same attorneys are now saying, well, now the buyers need to be in contract and the buyers have to pay, and that needs to be a law. So they're just going to start a lawsuit in 3 to 4 to 5 years and representing the buyers on the same terms.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just a bunch of government attorney overreach and not enough protection by NAR. I think NAR has extremely dropped the ball for years now. And I think this is probably the nuclear bomb that they were hoping never came.
Man. So anything else you want to say about that lawsuit and all that?
I have some strong opinions.
Yeah, tell us.
It's a net positive because if I then get to have a more strategic conversation with a buyer and seller, that's better for me because I'm an expert in my field.
Do you think it'll make more people do double end it?
100%. I think it's catastrophic for the entire buyer seller environment.
Because then the buyer doesn't get as good of representation, right? Because when you double end, it's fine, right? It's allowed, it's legal. And, most of the time you can represent two people sort of, but there is a conflict of interest.
Oh, for sure.
So is it going to create more of that, you think?
It's going to create way more.
Yeah.
It's going to be a problem. My biggest concern is most real estate professionals don't understand the 90 pages of disclosures.
Right. They don't even look at it. They just click.
Let alone a buyer that now doesn't know what they're getting, doesn't know how to navigate an inspection or what to look for. But all that does is that leads me in there. It's this is my worth. And everybody who's really good at their job and can describe their value prop well will be fine. Yeah. I'm not worried at all. I haven't even made a video about it on purpose. I'm
here's one. This is going to be one.
Right. I'm I don't care. And I tell all my agents, I'm this is a good problem. It's got people talking about, the industry, which is great for our industry. Good press, bad press.
Yep.
We're still getting press right now. But it's also, if you're a seller and you're selling a $5 million house on the water and, you're not going to offer a buyer's commission, well, that's fine, but you're going to cut 90% of the market out.
Yeah.
And you don't realize that yet, but you will.
Yeah, you will.
You will.
And then they'll probably start, putting some money into marketing, right? And do other things. Like there's always opportunity in these changes, right?
There is, good or bad.
Absolutely. So the famous words of real estate agents are, it's always a good time to buy, or it's a great time to sell. It's a great time to buy. It is.
It's very singular though. And I'm very vocal about that topic.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah. There was a post that I did, probably 2 months ago. And I'm like, you guys hear me talk a lot about rates and interest rates and investing, where it might be a good market for me where I'm at in my life with my kids and my portfolio, and it might not be for you.
Yeah.
This is an individualized sport.
Yeah.
So
it's not a blanket term.
It's not a blanket term. So I like to sit down with people because it might not be a good time for you.
Yeah.
You might really benefit from renting another 6 months.
Yeah.
So, but I need to have that conversation with you based on your goals, wants, and needs, and what's your 5-year, 10-year goal.
Yeah.
And then we reverse engineer that. So it's not a blanket. And I've sat down with sellers. I'm like, do not sell this year. And I'll go to the very next list. But I'm like, we need to be on the market tomorrow. Right. So it's very different based on your family's goals.
I like that, because then it's more of an honesty play, because it's hard to trust people who are incentivized by that commission, because they're going to normally say, right now it's a great time to buy. Here's why. Or here's a great time to sell. But you're not digging into the person's needs and their wants and all their things that's really going to benefit them financially or for what they need for their family. So the fact that you will analyze that and maybe turn away or turn something down for a little bit, they'll come back to you because they'll trust you then. They'll be like, okay, Andy's shot us straight, and let's do this. And here's why, and it makes sense. We'll save this much money, or whatever reason. It's
all math for me. This entire business is math. What does the math say? Yeah. Does the math for your family say buy, sell, or wait?
Yeah.
Then that's what we do. And I've turned away a lot of listings. I'll go in there and I go, I'm not for everybody. I'm very direct, but I'm also a savage for my clients, and I will fight like crazy for you.
Yeah.
But here's where we need to be, and here's why, and here's my strategic plan for how we can execute this.
Yep.
And if you were my dad, this is how I would be advising you.
That's cool.
But if you want to list here, and this is kind of your life and timeline right now, I'm probably not the best fit for you.
Yep.
And they always say, well, why? And I'm like, my time is very important to me. I'm a dad first.
Yeah.
Love my kids. And you're going to be on market for 6 months to a year. And you're going to list with somebody else, because I'm not going to take this deal. And they're not going to be able to get it done. Yeah. And then when they don't get it done, you call me and we'll get it done for sure. I'm like, 24% of our entire business is from people that we said no to that then hire us later.
Wow. That's cool. Any stories of how you were savage?
Oh man. I mean, I am not liked in the city of Long Beach. I do. I mean, I'm a very nice guy. I have a big heart and I love to help. If we're sitting across from each other on the negotiation table, I'm not pleasant. I fight like crazy for every dollar. Sometimes, like, my clients will have to reel me in. They're like, Andy, we're good at this number. I'm like, a little more. So for me, I like the fight. And I like the fight more than the payday. There's been times I've left large checks at escrow. They call me like, you going to come get this thing? I'm like, oh shit.
I'm still pissed.
Yeah, because like I like to win and like for my clients. So there are people that do not like me solely because we had a very difficult transaction and I'm a bulldozer. And that's how it is. Yeah. And if it was the other way, I'd be doing it on like the other side.
Yeah. I like that. Social media is where I think I found you.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
what, 5, 7 years? It was when we had John Tillman. Shout out to John Tillman, started the podcast. I think he might have found you probably because we were watching Gary Vaynerchuk stuff, and you were on that. But how has social media changed since then for you? Because I know you were doing a ton. All your effort was on that.
Absolutely. And I went all in. So I just followed the model that Gary laid out for me. Yeah. I've stayed very close to him and his team. For me personally, I have gone like really heavy in stories for like social.
Yeah.
I've
never loved stories.
I know.
Great. I don't know what it is. It's maybe I'm old, but
it's so funny because either you love them or you hate them.
Yeah.
And there's been a change in social media. It's going to always change and evolve. Yeah. We do a lot of short format, a lot of long format,
a
lot of reels, small stuff with TikTok. I actually just got my TikTok account back. So I had a verified account and then it got hacked and I couldn't get it back for 2 years.
It's the worst.
I just finally got it back.
I got kicked off Facebook.
Oh yeah, it's.
I was being a little too snarky during the pandemic, and
it happens.
Some arguments with some people.
Yeah,
and they literally banned my personal account from Facebook, and I was like, I have my whole kid's timeline, like from when they were born. Oh no! And I never got all that stuff back. So then, luckily, like
I can probably help you with that. I have some friends over there. Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk.
We'll talk about that
because I would love to see these videos of my kids like saying the ABCs, for the first time when they were like whatever age. But yeah, keep talking. So
so like for me, it's kind of changed. It has become literally just this thing that I'm creating for my kids and my great grandkids. But to your point, it could go away and then it's
gone. To the point of like freedom of speech is not always true. No, and I think they got in trouble for that. So
it's frustrating. Yeah.
They did come back an email saying like, hey, you have a chance to get all your data. And I tried and I couldn't get it. So I don't know if they deleted it or if
they hold everything. I don't know if they delete anything. Yeah.
They're data whores.
They really are. Yeah. So that's important for them. I don't know. For me, it's this thing where like, it's important for me to be visible within the community and what I'm trying to do. But my social media changes based on what I'm trying to push, right? Like, am I trying to push like a great tequila company that we have? So I kind of use it as like a laser. You know what I mean? I'm just trying to point it at what we're trying to point it at.
Where's the tension need to be?
Yeah. So I think it depends on what you're trying to do. Like if you're a real estate professional or if you're a mortgage broker, you have to be the local expert. Like if you are servicing a city, you got to be the guy and gal of that city.
Yeah.
And then that takes 2 to 4 years. Mm-hmm. And then it's just, you have to be relentless with your content. I also like to do a blend of business and personal and lifestyle. Like it can't just be houses.
Snooze.
Right.
Yeah.
Like for me, that's a problem. Plus you have to let people consume you at their own rate.
Sure. I love that. Be the local expert, because if you start here, people are going to move out. They're going to have their friends visit. They're going to have their sister that lives, in Austin or wherever. And then it'll naturally spread. But if you own that local space, and that's doable, right?
It's priceless. There are agents that I follow.
I'm going to own the whole nation or whatever.
It doesn't work unless you're trying to create some big fund.
Sure.
And I kind of did that at first. And then realized really quickly it's a ton.
Yeah.
But there are really good agents that I follow that are in these cities I'll never even go into because I like their content.
Yeah.
But now if like somebody calls me and says, hey, do you have somebody, for Knoxville, Tennessee, and that guy that I follow, I'm like, just
call my buddy Bob.
So me all the way in Southern California found him through social and now we can do business together.
That's cool.
And so by going really deep in a local area, it's very easy to then just scale that naturally.
Yeah.
And you also don't want to service everybody either.
No. I still want to say it again. If you can pick your local community and you can dominate that, then you can spread out. But it's going to take time. You can't just, it's not going to happen in a week, a month, 3 posts, and you're like, gosh, why am I not getting any calls? Wah.
Give yourself 10 years to do anything great.
Yeah.
Like it just takes time. But what's crazy is when I was like 29, 30 years old and broke, and then from that point in my life to my 40th birthday I could have never dreamed I could have done what I could in 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's you can accomplish so much. But you just have to give yourself permission. You got to have a definitive goals and you just start checking them off the box.
Right. That's good. Kind of reminds me of that Shia LaBeouf, just do it.
Mm-hmm. Just do it.
You keep quitting. You said tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and he goes to the whole thing, but he's like, there's one line he says in there. I think it was, you keep starting over. Like, he's like, if you stick with something and you stick it for, like, to your point, 10 years, it's amazing what happens after you've been in something for 10 years. And
you hit mastery.
Yeah. You get mastery, but you also start getting like feedback. like the feedback starts happening. You start getting like all the seeds start blossoming, all the things that you've done, all the people you've met, just it all like, I remember there was like a tipping point in my career when it was like, oh my gosh, there's like, I'm starting to get referrals without having to do anything. But it was after all this hard work. It's like an overnight success, 10 years in the making.
100%. And what actually happened to us probably the third quarter of last year, and I get frustrated every quarter because we spend so much in marketing. Mm-hmm. How come it's not working? How come the phone's not ringing more? And blah, blah, blah. For 3.5 straight years of outspending every other team in the whole city and not getting the results. Yeah. But it takes time. And then all of a sudden, one day, I got 3 calls for me to go like list their homes. Yeah. I called my sales manager, JP. I'm like, dude, we got 3 calls.
That's awesome.
And then it never stopped.
Yeah.
Because that particular market, they're very comfortable with the 37-year, 40 years of the same agents. Mm-hmm. And I might be the new guy who's blasting everything, but they don't trust me yet. They also don't know me yet. Right. So, but I have no patience. But then it just worked. And like the faucet just went and turned on.
And imagine if you would have quit, a month before those 3 calls came in. But we just can't market anymore. We can't keep spending this money.
It happens once a quarter. Like I have these big meetings with our marketing team, and I'm like, we got to cut this. And then one person will be like, yeah, but you say this every quarter. And like, what about this? I'm like, okay, you're right. And I just chalk it up to branding. Yeah. And then it just works. Yeah. But I even have to remind myself, like, this is what you preach. And sometimes it's frustrating, but you just got to keep going. Quitting is not an option. No. It just isn't.
No, it can't even be in your vocabulary.
Nope.
No, don't like it. Your biggest challenge now, what is it?
Yeah, staying happy. So I've got this happiness and joy meter that I am constantly playing with. Yeah. And when I'm scaling out a business, it's really fun. Like I love the growth and the scale. And
building. You're a builder.
I'm a builder. I love to build. Mm-hmm. And I was so excited that we hit that goal that we had set of like the number 1 team in the city. And it was this thing. The first call I made was to one of the Bobs because they know me really well. And I go, I'm afraid I'm going to take my foot off the gas now because I hit my target. Yeah. And I go, and it's my Achilles heel. I hit my goal. Now what? Yeah. And they're like, you've created something really good. Just sustain it. Yeah. You don't have to go 150 miles an hour. Go 70. Yeah. Go from the carpool lane to the slow lane and then just continue to build.
If you start looking around and then look at the billboards,
And that's exactly what they said. It's like, look, you have a lot to share. Go share with your agents. Take somebody who you see a little bit of fire in, who you know is going to be like a savage, and invest in them. I go, that'll fulfill you. And I'm like, great. Like, that's why I call you. Yeah. So for me, and then how do I balance, I love my kids. They're 8 and 10. They do a ton of stuff. So my world is basically 10 to 3 for my job. Mm-hmm. And then it's like my kids in the morning and my kids in the afternoon and my life and my, that's my real life. Yeah. And like the business part is, how do I still find the joy in all of it?
It's so fulfilling having kids.
Dude, it's the best.
And there's moments where you're like, I hate,
of course,
I hate this, or like, you flip your kid behind the back, or whatever, because they're being sassy or whatever. And
no, my kids will, like, I mean,
but it's the most rewarding thing in the world.
It's the greatest thing ever. I had no idea it was going to be this incredible being a dad. Yeah. No idea.
I love it.
It is the kids? Best. So my oldest Jackson's going to be 11 in July, and then my youngest is going to be 9 in August.
Such a fun age.
Oh man, it's a blast.
They're all different fun ages, but my favorite was like from like 4 or 5 to like 9, 10, and then it was like, it was cool. Everything else was cool after that, but like, they start getting a little older, a little more teenager kind of attitudes and stuff. Right. But then, like right now, mine are 18. I have twins, so they're both 18, and it's just so fun watching them like become little adults, explore, and have a little more freedom, and they're gonna go off and do their thing in college, and you're like, it's just cool. I mean, it's such a, but no one ever tells you the last time you'll do something with your kid.
Oh, it's like I get choked up even thinking about it.
Like the last time your daughter will sit on your lap, or you put her on their shoulders, or last time you'll, do the father-daughter dance. Like there's just, no one tells you like, this is the last time you'll ever do this thing with them ever again, or color or play Legos with your boy. Like I remember loving playing Legos with my son.
But Same with me. And my son's huge in Legos.
No one told me this is like, if someone was like, hey, John, today is the last time you'll ever play Legos with your son.
Mm-hmm.
I would have been like, we're not stopping for 10 hours.
Like straight.
Right? Like
it's the best part about life. And it's why I'm like such a spiritual person and so connected to God. And that is the beautiful part about life is it's not guaranteed. You don't know what's going to happen. My kids will come and crawl in bed with me every night. It's one of them will just come in, but at some point
there'll be a last time.
That'll stop.
Yeah.
And like, it scares me to death.
I don't want this to end.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so true. I was in my recording studio the other day and I was like, and it's kind of been quiet, you know, because my daughter and I, that's where we kind of really connected.
I remember
music.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't recorded in like, I think about 6-7 months, and she's going to be off to college. And I'm like, and I started thinking that I got real heavy, like a little down. And I was like,
I bet
this might have, like that 6 months ago might've been the last time I recorded with my daughter, like made music.
Why she lives at the house, not ever, but still.
Yeah. I mean, in this studio here, in this thing, in this setting, where like she looks at me as like the producer,
superhero,
whatever, you know?
yeah.
But like, you know, I'm sure we will, as you know, like we'll, you know, like they'll come home from Thanksgiving and all those things after college, but it's still kind of heavy if you think about life. Like it is very precious. Time is the most important commodity that we have. And
100%.
And sometimes we, as like guys that charge and like do a lot in business, and we put so much effort into our business, it's so easy to forget, like, wait, I should go to that baseball game because that might be the last baseball game that my son ever plays.
It is the biggest regret for males in their later lives. I mean, and I've talked to a lot of old guys, and it's almost across the board. They're like, I wish I'd have worked a little less.
Yeah. Well, you know what I did is I quit golfing when my kids were like born, or like one, maybe. I think it was like right when they were one, they started giving me feedback of like, instead of just the drool and the, you know, diapers and all that, it was like, they started giving me cool feedback. And I was like, oh, this is a little human. Oh my gosh, I want to be here all the time. And I was just like, and I didn't love golf like some people, but I was like, you know what? I don't need to be on the golf course for 5 hours.
A big chunk of time, yeah.
Especially like, because it'd be on the weekend when I have time for it, like to be with them. But like stuff like that, I think is so important in life, and just finding that balance. But
it's the stuff you never get back. Yeah. Like, I don't care if I make $30 million less at the end of my life. You know what I mean? Like, it's so important because I'm not close to my dad. I haven't talked to him in years and years and years. And that experience has made me a great dad. So that's a huge blessing that I got from my dad, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't do anything on the weekends, like for a decade.
Yeah. You just clear your weekend. Like
I'm hanging out with my kids. I do the same thing in the evenings. Like, I'm so rarely at a dinner for work. Yeah. I say no to everything. Like, everybody, like, they stopped inviting me years ago.
Yeah. It's that I was the same, but then my kids started not showing up because they're, 17, 16, 17, 18. And like, I'm having dinner with Johnny. I'm having dinner with whoever, right?
It's going to happen to me too, probably the next few years.
And then you're like, I'm so glad that I did that.
That's right.
I was at home for dinner every night.
That's right.
Because then they don't want anything. They still love you. They just don't want to be around you as much because they're exploring and they need to do that, right?
Agreed.
Let's talk about how a failure that you had ended up to be a positive outcome.
Oh man. We don't have a long enough podcast for all of them, but I mean,
that stands out maybe.
I have failed so many times in my life, like spiritually, financially, physically. I can kind of like maybe pick a pillar, but in business, I've made bad investments.
Like you remember, like, whoa, you thought it was the end of the world, and then it turned around. Or
yeah. So when I dissolved the partnership that I kind of built everything with, that was a big one for me because I kind of came into them. They were already established. I came in and really retooled the business and became like a huge partner, did all the acquisitions. It was when we were flipping houses, 2008 through 10.
Okay.
And then we moved into like multifamily investing. I started to do a lot of wholesaling and syndications myself.
Yep.
And when that partnership went really sideways, I was just like, I was really bummed because we kind of built this thing together and it fell apart. And this weird part of me was like, I'm never going to be as successful as I was with them, because I would lean on my partner as a crutch, and I would lean on my other one as this other crutch.
Interesting.
And then I'm standing here by myself in a ton of fear of like, how am I going to do this on my own?
Yeah.
And then I 10x'd as soon as that happened. So like, again, it's literally God clearing the way for you. It's like, sometimes
the crutches away, and that's what you need to like to walk again.
Right. Yeah. And so he's going to do for you that you won't do for yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, like the things that happened were so crazy that like he was just getting those like people out of my life. They were very toxic. We had a very toxic partnership.
Yeah.
It was all financial. But I like, it was like a weird, like 6-month depression where I didn't do a lot of business. Yeah. And like, my first was just born. And I'm just like, what am I going to do? And then I kind of like snapped out of it. And I was like, you have a son. Like, get up, dust yourself off, and get back to work.
Right.
And as soon as I just decided that, like the floodgates opened.
Yeah.
It was the craziest thing. So I don't know. I'm a big fan of failures because you get feedback. You get data.
Right.
And if you look at the data points and you can actually map them, then it's going to work.
Yeah.
It just
so true.
You know what I mean?
I'm a big believer in the amor fati.
1,000%.
And there's a Chinese proverb where it's like, how do you know? He keeps saying, how do you know? Some bad things happen, and then some good things happen, and they're like, this happened, this is so great, and it's like, how do you know? Like, and then the next thing happens, and they're like, oh, it's so sad that this happened.
Is it?
Yeah. Is it? Is it sad? And then like that leads to this next thing, and it's like, that's why I think you just got to go through life and accept, but accept and still work hard, right? And still have effort. But like, you know, if you have a roadblock or something, you go, okay, maybe there's a reason for that. And
the obstacle is the way. And every single time, whatever you're resisting, that's the direction you got to go.
Yeah.
And it sucks because it's really hard.
It really is. Yeah. It takes some kind of like, I don't know. I mean, some people are naturally optimistic and some people are not. And it's a battle for them to be optimistic and, you know, fight that, like the negative thoughts. I don't know how it happens. Like, you know, you have two people, nature versus nurture. You have two people and they're both in the same household, right? Yep. And then one just is naturally leaning towards negativity. One's more like happy-go-lucky. It's like, but like, that's where you go, this is what I got to work on. This is what I got to be better at. And then, you know, you have the pluses and minuses that you got to balance out. But
yeah. And at the end of the day, no one cares. Like, no one cares if you're crying about that. No one cares.
Yeah.
Like, not even your family. They'll say they care and they'll pretend inside that they have empathy for you.
Yeah.
But deep down inside, they're like, well, just figure it out. Like, my kids couldn't be more different. They're in the same house, go to the same school, from the same parents. Yeah. And like, they're going to have a very different existence on this planet.
Absolutely.
So I try to stay in like the positive as much as possible.
Yeah.
Because my brain will swing just as far into the negative as I keep it in the positive.
Yeah.
So I'm in this constant battle of light and dark.
Makes life interesting, though.
It sure does. Ask my wife. Yeah, it sure does. Makes it very interesting.
Oh, so let's a little bit on spirituality. Like, what do you think about, you know, you the light and the dark? Like, what do you think about principles and spirituality and how does that play into your business?
Yeah, you have to have it. Like, if you don't have a moral compass in this business, I think you go too far into like, it's just the greed and the ego and all you care about money.
Yeah.
You will make a poor decision and it'll get you in trouble and it's going to get you burned. Yeah. So for me, there's people I would love to do business with. I'll make a lot of money with them.
Yeah.
I just can't be around their, you know, kind of core belief system.
Yeah.
And they don't have a moral compass. And for me, it's just not worth it.
Not worth it.
So, and I can read people so well. I'll get in a meeting and I'm like, we're going to make a lot of money, but we're not going to do it.
Yeah.
Just can't do it.
Short-term gain for long-term pain.
For sure. And you can destroy your name in this business very quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. You got to think long-term. That's why, like, transactions versus relationships. It's always relationships win versus transactions. Don't let like a transaction, the greed of like getting that commission or like here's an example. Like, I remember I had friends and him and I were competing against the same loan, like for a borrower. And I remember, you know what? He's my friend. I'm not gonna grind him down. I could probably win and be so competitive that I totally make nothing on it and steal it from this guy. But I was like, you know what? I don't care. I'm good. I'm good. I don't need to make that extra $10 just to kill this guy. And like,
that's right.
Take his client away from him. And then you just go, you know what? I'll be happier if I just, occasionally let someone else take it. Then grind against a friend. That's like long-term, long-term gain, because you're going to have a friend that's long-term and a reputation long-term versus a short-term, like, oh, that guy's an asshole.
Yeah.
That guy's a prick.
Right. And now you have something on them too, which you can say, you know what? I gave you that one.
Yeah, I
gave you that one. And even if you never tell them,
right, you always know.
You're like, okay, but I love to be like, okay, you're right.
Yeah.
I'm like, I had you over a barrel.
Could have stole that client easy.
And I just uncocked the gun.
Yeah. And that's kind of, there's maturity in that. There's power in that a little bit. It's like, look, I don't have to take every opportunity. I can sit back and watch and maturity in that, right? Like, yeah,
there's a beautiful quote that I heard a long time ago. It's, you don't have to show up to every fight you're called to.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And
I like that.
And for me, I have to remind myself of that constantly, because I will flip a switch and I want to fight. Yeah. And like, I'm coming after you. And then I also heard this other one that was a beautiful perspective, like on like the whole spiritual part. It's like, no. You were supposed to lose that. They were supposed to win because you were a part of like God's mission for them. Like that was them winning. So you were part of their prayers being answered. And I'm like, it's hard to swallow that. But if you can stay in that space, you're like, oh no, I was supposed to lose that because I was a part of God answering their prayer.
Yeah, that's good.
And like for me, it takes the weight of the fight out of it, because the fight for me is all ego. My ego's mad, so then I'm gonna fire up and I'm gonna fire back. But if I'm like, oh no, this was all divinely, like laid out, I can at least hit pause and see if I want to go nuclear or not. But at least have a perspective.
Yeah, and I think there's also those people that get so pissed off on the freeway when someone won't let them in, or they won't, they're cutting in front of them, and it's your choice how you react to that.
That's where all the power is.
And I just like look back to what my dad said one time when I was a kid and we were driving down, we left our house, we're just driving down our street. I look out the window and there's this like punk rocker guy sitting on a curb, and he looks at me, and he just does a double, flip off. And I'm like, and I think I was like probably 14 or 15, and I was like, Dad, that guy just flipped me off. And then my dad was like, he's probably having a bad day, son. It's like, don't let it affect you. It's nothing to do with you.
And it's wisdom. Like, there's so many great men and women out there that never react, because the reaction is giving them the power.
Yeah. And you want to give them the power.
And you're giving them leverage. Some of the hardest guys I've ever had to like negotiate against, all my stuff to trigger them and to get them into my world so I can beat them up, it doesn't work.
No.
They're unaffected by all of my, tactics and antics.
Chest pounding.
All of that. Yeah. And me pushing and playing poker and bluffing. They're just like, yeah, that's just not, no, okay.
I'm good.
Nothing. Yeah. And that is very powerful.
Yeah, I think that's something that, it's not easy to do. It's easy to think.
Practice.
Yeah. And then it eventually starts work. You start doing it, you practice it, and it starts working. And then you're like, gosh, I'm happier now because I didn't let that make me react.
Yeah. It's super hard to practice like non-attachment to the outcome.
Yeah.
It's especially for me, it's very difficult. But it feels so good when I do that. I'm like, well, that one just didn't work out. Off to the next.
Yeah.
It's like, before I will play that tape in my head like a crazy person. What could I have done better? How could I have done that? How could I have won?
Yeah.
And then it's like, that wasn't for me to win.
That's good, man.
That's just a little bit of age, I think.
Yeah. We're all getting older every day.
I love it. I like getting older. It doesn't bother me one bit.
What about where's real estate headed right now? 2024.
Yeah.
We just finished March, good quarter, first quarter. We're in the middle of April. Where's it headed?
Yeah, so I think this is going to be an interesting year for sure. Q2, Q3, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of playing the field as like the players are showing up. I think that the real estate market as a whole has two very different paths. And I think we're probably going to know in November which path it's going to take.
Oh, election. Election month.
Big election month. So it could either be an 8 to 10 year run where it's going to be a free for all, cheaper capital, a lot of people flooding to the US to build because we still have a massive shortage, a lot of loans, a lot of just capitalism at its finest, which I'm hoping for. I think that's great. Or we hit the conspiracy theory tin hat, zone where no idea what's going to happen and everything implodes. And then we have a good 4 to 5 year dark run that I don't know if we fully recover from at this point. It's pretty dire out there. I have some dear friends that are 1,000 times smarter than me that play in the global markets, and they're petrified right now.
I believe it, man. Yeah, it's if you want to find some information out there online, it's there.
It is,
and it's dark. It's almost. It's I'd rather just not know. I'd rather like in the Matrix, was I want to go back in,
right?
But so. Like you said, we don't know.
I don't know.
We just got to keep putting effort in.
And that's exactly right. So here's what I preach at all my offices and for the team and everybody that'll listen. You put one foot in front of the other. It's just like COVID, right? No one knew it was going to happen. I went to the office every day. Yeah.
And I remember calling you, right? When COVID hit, I'm like, dude, there are a bunch of listings. Is everyone selling their house? You're like, nope.
No.
Everyone's quiet. It's quiet.
We crushed during COVID because I was already doing a bunch of stuff digitally. Yeah. So we created the digital open house. So we sold that was our first. So
the digital open house. That's cool.
Yeah. So my website was done in January. We launched the team in February. March is when everything hit the fan.
Yeah, it did.
I had a new office, just build it out. Everybody's like, everything's over. And I'm like, not for me.
Not over, but it sure feels over.
And it did, right? Yeah. So, and no one could have ever predicted the whipsaw that would have happened with just the entire market's philosophy on homes. I mean, people loved their home again because they spent so much time there.
Yeah, and then they wanted to improve it. So Home Depot just won.
Explode. Well, and they just made a big bet. So they're betting with some big builders right now.
And someone let them stay open.
They sure did. So that's the other part. You have to look deeper than the news and you have to look deeper than the media. And you kind of have to take a 30,000 foot view of what's really going on. The problem is I don't know if we're going to really know until November, December.
Yeah.
So we just have to kind of do what we're going to do until then and try to really educate our clients and our staff on the strategic conversations to have so they make wise decisions.
Right. It sure feels good right now. Feels like things are...
Feels good to me.
Feels like people are optimistic about the market. The rate cuts are coming. People more probably looking at homes again. Offers are. It's you're probably getting multiple offers again.
We're seeing multiple of course. Certain price points are crushing. I have so many listings right now that are sitting because the sellers were like, let's test the market here. Yeah. And I'm like, we're gonna sit for 6 months. If you're here, we'll sell with multiples. Yeah. It's up to you and your threshold. Yep. But I again like this market. Yeah. It's gonna continue to do its thing, but it's interesting to see how everything is going to shift. Yeah. I just think it's fun. I always think it's fun.
That's awesome, man. It's always fun having you on and hanging out and catching up. And how do people find you online?
Yeah, I'm super easy. If you just type my full name into the internet, you can find me everywhere. It's Andy Dane Carter. I do, a lot on social, a lot with Instagram. We have
TikTok now.
TikTok, and our YouTube channel does really, really well. I got to have you on for season 4 too.
Dude, I'll be on it.
For the podcast. Yeah, that'll be fun.
We love it. Well, thanks for coming on, and everyone, thanks for watching. Thanks. Please share with your friends. It's how we grow. Please like us. Say some comments down there, please, because it helps the algorithm. And plus, we want to know what you think. So, and go follow Dane on his socials. He's definitely helped me with a bunch of stuff, as far as social media goes and just in life. So. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you, guys.
The $1 Million Mortgage Experience Podcast.